Welcome to the Polar Express. We start the movie on Christmas Eve with this boy who doesn't believe in
Merry Chrysler.
the child decides to also plague his little sister and gaslights her into thinking Santa isn't real. Asshole. We get Tank Hanks, the Tom Engine, narrating for the boys an older version of himself. Tom Hanks literally voices 7 roles throughout this movie, which is kind of wild to think about because I never even realized it as a kid. The boy starts rummaging through some old papers, trying to prove to himself that Santa isn't real, going as far as pulling out the North Pole in this book. He looks at the words, devoid of life, like it proves something. The boy jumps into bed and pretends to sleep before his parents come in to spit a loogie on his forehead and say goodnight. He closes his eyes and tries to get some sleep until he wakes up 5 minutes before midnight with the time frozen. If that isn't weird enough, everything starts shaking in his room, almost like an earthquake. But hey, if that isn't weird enough, it's not an earthquake. It's a gigantic train stopping in front of his house in the middle of the night in a neighborhood. The kid goes out to investigate and hears coming from the conductor. He asks,
You coming?
Where?
The North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express.
all right, asshole, how was I supposed to know that?
Listen here, you little shit.
The conductor pulls out a list of reasons and shows him that he is losing belief in.
Christmas.
He tells him that this is his one chance to get on, but the kid is kind of hesitant and remembers.
Stranger danger!
I definitely would be cautious as well with an animated Tom Hanks telling me to climb onto a train. But FOMO kicks in right away, and so he hops on the Polar Express and is shown the cart with all the other little kids that have been convinced to hop on as well. I'm literally just going to point out right now that any other setting, this would be insane. Instead of a train to see Santa, what happens if this was like a white van heading to see Santa? The fact that it's a kid movie makes it okay, obviously, but just the idea of driving around recruiting kids to head to the North Pole is a pretty wild concept. But he sits down with this girl just staring. I mean, the most staring stare you could ever conjure up. Just creepily staring at him. He glances at her like, the fuck you want? But before he could tell her to stop being weird, the actually kid sticks his head over the seat. I will forever remember the kids like this when I was growing up. I would actually pass a kidney stone just for them to shut up. Yellow Shirt just starts talking random shit about train facts like the kid actually asked. Blue Robe shuts that down right away and asks the girl with staring problems and a scary smile if they're really going to the North Pole. They all pass by a toy store where all the kids get excited, but Blue Robe sees the gear-powered Santa in the shop and shakes his head like, yep, that's what I thought. Like, really, what did you expect to be in the store? The real fucking Santa to be on display for everyone? This kid is in every way trying to show that he's a Scrooge and just hates Christmas. The conductor comes and asks for tickets. Blue Robe asks, what ticket? The conductor tells him to check his pockets, so he fingers this hole in his pocket, but then checks the other side to find this pretty golden ticket that clearly wasn't there when he got on. Hank goes ham on the ticket by putting some letters into it. They make another stop at the kid's house to round up another sucker, who is way more hesitant than Blue Robe Kid because he chose to not board until the train had already gained a fat amount of speed. Respectfully, he made his choice and should have been left face down in the snow, but Blue Robe, our boy, has a heart of gold because he turns and says, we have to stop the train. Actually, kid tells him to grab the emergency brake. Blue Robe pulls it so the kid can make it on. Once Dumbo makes it, dude, like, damn, look at those ears. Once he makes it on, he looks at the other kids and decides to go sit in the back cart that is completely empty so he can be alone. He doesn't want to hang out with the other kids because he is shy or probably got a good look at the actually kid and said, fuck that. The conductor comes in super angry and yells at the kids and asks who applied the brake. You already know. Four Eyes singles out Blue Robe in a heartbeat, but Pigtails tells him that he only did it so the other kid was able to make it on board. The conductor goes, is that true? I'll allow it. Who wants some hot chocolate? A bunch of dudes come flying in to serve some hot chocolate. They set up these magical tables to serve the cocoa on and also to break some moves on them, just giving the kids some pure entertainment to fill them up so they will crash after this and chill the fuck out. While moves are busting, the little girl steals an extra cup of cocoa for the kid in the back after the show ends. The studs pack up and leave, so she takes the cup and starts walking to the back. He's like, I don't think we're allowed to do that. Yeah, it's in violation of railroad safety regulations for kids to move between
violation
cars.
safety. Shut the fuck up.
She goes anyways, but before she got anywhere, the conductor shows up, but he doesn't really care. He just wants to accompany her over to the other car. While she is on her side quest, Blue Robe spots her unpunched ticket lying on her seat. Her seat, just sitting there. He wants to go give it to her for whatever reason, acting like she isn't going to be back in like 10 minutes. I mean, maybe 15 minutes if you really want to spin it that way. Just wait for her, you stupid pubescent smooth-brained kid. She will be right back. There is truly no reason for him to be going over there and trying to give the ticket back, but he does, and he grabs the ticket and opens the door, getting ready to cross over to the next car. Before the kid even has a chance to do anything, the ticket flies out of his hand, having a journey of its own, flying by a pack of wolves, getting rolled up and turning into a big snowball, rolling down a hill that breaks open at the end, flies around some more, and then back over to the front of the train, goes under the train, and super conveniently makes its way back into the car with the kids and sticks to an air vent. The conductor and the girl make it back, and he asks her to punch the ticket. She goes, I left it right here. I didn't take it with me, and now it's gone. Blue Robe stands up and takes blame for losing it and tries to hand her his ticket, but the conductor stops him and says,
These tickets are not transferable.
so the conductor takes the little girl and heads to the back. Little shit Four Eyes is like he's gonna throw her off because it's standard procedure and that's what happens when you don't have a ticket. Like bro, shut up. Blue Robe, for whatever reason, believes him because his brain is smooth. I'm just saying, I'm not a train conductor, nor do I really know much about trains, but if you're missing a ticket, I highly doubt murder is the standard procedure. He goes to pull the emergency brake once again, but that's also a horrific idea because if they're on the back of the car, they're just gonna both fly off the back. But before he does that, he sees the ticket and grabs it. He tries to get to her before she gets thrown off the train, so he puts it in his mouth and jumps to the other car. car. He runs to the back of the car, but doesn't see them until he sees their shadows reflecting off the mountainside because they are walking on top of the moving train. Instead of just walking car to car, they go on top of the moving train. Yep. The kid follows them and climbs the ladder trying to catch up to them, but the snow and wind are just too much for him and they disappear into the void. He keeps moving forward though until he finds this hobo. The whole theory about this movie is that the conductor is the blue robe kid that believes in Santa and Christmas, and the hobo is the version of him that doubts Santa and Christmas. So it's like belief and doubt, blah, blah, blah. That's why they both kind of have the same voice. They're both done by Tom Hanks, but you know, that's just a theory. But to the movie, he comes across the hobo camping out on the roof of the train, which right away, there would be no way that they didn't just pass by each other. So he could have just asked if he saw them, but the hobo is unconcerned playing the boogaloo or a banjo or whatever that instrument is. They get talking and he's offered a nice cup of joe, which turns out to just be some dirty sock water. The kid shows him the ticket and he is told to keep it safe by shoving it in his shoe. And then the hobo tells him how he rides for free and he is the
King of the North Pole!
He finds out that the kid does not believe in Santa and tells him that
Seeing is believing.
the kid is starting to think he's in a dream. The hobo asks,
Do you believe in ghosts?
kid's like, nar.
Interesting.
Obviously indicating that he is a ghost. He even just disappears right in front of him. The kid starts tripping out and goes loony, trying to wake himself up, but he can't for some reason, starting to think that maybe this is not a dream. As the kid is crashing out, the hobo reappears, saying, wake up, kid. Super ironically, the hobo now has skis on to help the kid get to the front of the train, saying that they need to jump the knuckles. But once the kid gets on his shoulders, they start going uphill and they slide backwards. Kid almost gets yeeted off the back, once again, facing another near-death experience. The hobo sees him fall and pulls him around to the front of the skis with his pole. Pause. Now they start going downhill at a very quick pace, needing to jump from car to car to make it to the front before they hit this cave. The hobo disappears at the last second and makes the boy jump into the coal pit before he smacks the cave. The kid exits the coal somehow not dirty. Like, how is he not dirty? That was a coal pit. He sees the little girl that he's been looking for all this time up here in the engine car because Four Eyes was lying when he said that she was going to be thrown off. The conductor just brought her up here to the front of the engine car where the engineers taught her how to drive the boat. They had to step out of the office for a minute and change the light bulb in front of the train. Just saying, if the conductor's entire intention was to bring her to the engine room, why did he go to the back of the train and then climb on top of the train while it's moving just to walk to the front? Like, explain that to me. That doesn't even make sense. Just walk from car to car. One fat and one skinny engineer get the light changed, but then they see something up ahead blocking the tracks. He yells back to the girl to stop the train. So she tells Blue Robe what lever it is, and this dipshit goes straight into asking,
Are you sure about that?
now the poor girl isn't sure because the kid just gaslit her into her brain blanking on her. The kid pulls the lever anyways, and it turns out to be the correct one. Like, bro, you don't need to be stressing her like that for no reason. They stop the train just in time before hitting a herd of caribou. The conductor comes to the front of the train to see what the cause of the commotion is, ranting again about how they are about to be late. Blue Robe slips and grabs onto the engineer's long-ass beard and pulls it the same way he would pull a train whistle. The conductor picks up that the redhead's scream makes the caribou respond in a way of moving off the tracks. So after a couple rub and hugs, they begin to proceed slowly while the caribou are clearing the way. While they are moving slowly, the kids and the conductor stay up front. Why? I don't know. To see, but that kind of seems like a pretty dumb idea. Once again, these retarded engineers are back at it again. The throttle gets stuck, and instead of addressing it and figuring out why it's stuck, they just start frantically yanking on it back and forth extremely obnoxiously until he pulls so hard that the pin falls out and the entire lever falls apart. The train starts to accelerate at an uncontrollable rate while the conductor and the kids are still on front of the train. He straps them in for a ride, and they go up and down this roller coaster style part of the track until they get to the end of the tracks that have been flooded by ice, so they start sliding all over the place. They smack a small ice cap, almost knocking the train over, and that almost makes the gang up front fall off. The conductor grabs the little girl, and the blue robe boy tries to help, but he's just sliding off until the ghost hobo steps in and adds a little assistance, and then disappears. While all that's going on, the pin is flying out and lands in the ice, making it crack immediately. Gingerbro takes the pin out of his hair and uses that to fix the throttle. Just like that. It's brand new. So they were able to pull the throttle back and stop the train. I fail to see how this fixes the issue because all they did was reset it to the exact position of why it wasn't working in the beginning. All they did was rebuild it exactly how it was, and now all of a sudden it has full range of motion. Whatever. Because the old pin flew out of the window and has cracked the ice, they have to move before it breaks under them and they fall into the water. The engineer puts it in reverse and swings this wide load around in a pretty clean 180, straight up Tokyo drifting this train. Once turned around, they have to hit this tiny little gap so they can get back on track. The conductor is telling them right and left, back and forth in all these cryptic ways until they do end up getting back on the tracks and make it heading back the correct way. Once they are cruising again, the boy pulls out the ticket from his foot and gives it to the girl. The conductor overhears the word ticket and asks to punch it for her. The conductor takes the two kids and starts heading back to the other car with all the kids in it. Just pointing out that at this point, he does take them from car to car from the inside. Not on top this time. Why not on top, brother? Why not just do the exact same thing that you did to get up here? Now you want to go through the cars? Now you think it's safer to go through the cars? Stay consistent, bro. It just doesn't make any sense. The car right behind the cool car is full of thrown away toys and works as a little graveyard for the toys until they can be reused again at some point from the big man. The boy is lacking behind them and ends up getting scared by the Scrooge puppet that is being controlled by the hobo ghost. So he takes off running like a scared little baby, even though he looks right up at the hobo, so it's not like he doesn't know that it's not the ghost playing around with him the whole time. He makes it back to the car with the kids, and Four Eyes gets to work yapping right away about nonsense again, but he just ignores him and heads to the back of the last car. He sees the little girl spot spying on Monkey Ears, who is on the edge of the car singing, when she decides to
potato
join in and sing
flew
along with him,
around
scaring him
my
in the process.
room.
They finish their little duet and get a standing ovation from the Aurora Borealis, meaning that they've made it to the North Pole. The conductor confirms this and points out Santa City, or whatever you would call it. I don't know. They enter this little magical elf city that is completely devoid of any life until they see an army of elves marching to the city center because of they're going to the center to see which one of the kids from the train is going to get the first present of Christmas this year from the big man himself. The kids all make it to the center of the city and they get unloaded into 2 separate lines, but Mr. Ape Ears doesn't get off the train. Blue Robe and the girl have to head back to see why he is just sitting there on the train all alone baloney. They climb onto the cart to see why he is trying to ruin this night. Blue Robe climbs on, detaching the car from the train without noticing. They get there and try to convince the kid to come down with the other kids. The girl's like, come down there. Santa's there. It's Christmas and all that. Ape Ears goes, Christmas just never works out for me. You know what? With that fucking attitude, it surely won't. Kid's probably 10 if I had to guess. He just rode in a magical fucking train, made it to the North Pole, and he can clearly see elves and a gigantic tree in the center of this city. And he's still gonna be like, Christmas just never works out for me. Like, how could you even say that in this case?
Just come down and stop being a bitch.
Now, the last car starts to roll away and heads down the hill, completely out of control though. And somehow, not a single person notices this is happening. They keep sliding down throughout the town. Blue Robe looks for the brake and the ghost gives him a little hand, smacking the brake and telling the kid,
Take a break!
they go into this black tunnel and the kid pulls this brake so the sparks start flying all over. At the end, they hit this spinning platform that is like a junction point where you pick which direction you want to go in. The gang jumps off because the girl hears a bell coming from one of the tunnels, but turns out she's the only one who can hear it. She decides that's the direction that they should go because it could be the bell from Santa's sleigh. They have to balance over the beams on the rails to make it across to the other side and head down the tunnel. When they get to the other end, it's like a miniature alleyway between the buildings that has an even smaller tunnel at the end of it. The girl wants to go through and the blue robe kid is like, are you sure that's the way? So she goes,
Shut the fuck up.
they go through the tunnel, and on the other end is a little elf factory with some of the remaining workers who are judging the last few kids on if they've been naughty or nice. For some reason, the leader elf literally looks like he would be Napoleon. Also, why are the kids on the screens real kids and not animated like the rest of this film is? That does not make sense to me. Whatever. They finish judging this last kid and hop into their little bullet train thingy that is going to take them to the city center so they can be a part of the celebration. The kids overhear the elves say that the tube thingy is the fastest way to the city center. So when they take off, the kids make it down there and climb inside of one of them. But the girl presses the middle button, unlike the elves who press the right button. So they get shot over to the gift wrapping part of the factory, where they end up bouncing along this conveyor belt until they make it to another section where the gifts are being organized and rolled out. But it starts operating again because there's one more gift that just got shat out. And Lord behold, the gift is made out to Ape Ears himself, who his real name is actually Billy. Billy decides to jump after the gift and grab onto it. So the other two kids go and chase after him into the next section, which turns out to be a slip and slide amusement park style thing that ends in a gigantic funnel that the kids fall into and leads to a huge pile of presents. With all the kids on this huge gigantic fucking pile of presents, it starts to move. It has a red sack around the base of the presents that shoot 4 cables up and hook onto some sort of carrier. It gets airlifted out and they go airborne, flying towards the big Christmas tree. But then Billy starts to get pulled down into the toys and they start pulling him back up to find out a stupid 4-eyed kid is attached to him. They find out he's there because he wants a sneak peek of his presents. First off, how did he even get here with the other kids? But the more pressing matter is why is he acting like a little fucking monster under the bed, tugging at the kid's leg? What was the point of being a little creep? And what would have happened if they didn't pull Billy back up? They all start nearing the Christmas tree and the elves are releasing some sort of gas out of the balloon so they can start their descent. While dropping Santa's nutsack, the conductor yells out that they are too low and they might hit the tree. So they try to shed some weight by dropping Elf Team 6. The military elves parachute off into the crowd, but it's all in vain because they still drag the nutsack across the top of the star and knock it off. With Elf Team 6 already disbanded, they need to send another Elf Team 5 down with bungee cords and grab a hold of the star. They get the star and put it back on top of the tree and drop the nutsack into the back of the sleigh. The kids are found inside and then they get kicked out and sent back to their group. The reindeer are rolled out and they start getting hooked up to the sleigh. Then the elves bust out the jingle bells and hook them up to the reindeer. Blue Robe Kid thinks he's having a stroke because he can't hear any of the bells. And the girl's like,
Aren't those bells the most beautiful sound?
with literally everyone hyping up Santa's entrance like it's a Lil Uzi concert. He comes out and everyone starts losing their brain functions. Blue Robe yells that he still cannot see him, even though Billy, who is right in front of him, says, as he keeps trying to get a good look at the big man, a bell flies off of one of the reindeer and lands right next to him. He picks it up and shakes it and still can't hear anything. So he goes, all right, I believe, and shakes it again and finally can hear something from the bell. Then out of the reflection of the bell, Santa appears, who is also voiced by Tom Hanks. He turns around and sees him and he's like,
What up, player?
Santa's looking at the kids, getting ready to choose which one of them gets to open the first gift. And the fucking 4-eyed kid is literally jumping out of his skin, yelling, pick me, 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 me.
Young boy?
Yeah.
I wouldn't pick you if you were the only kid standing here.
Santa goes over to the blue robe kid and he picks him for the first gift. Your breath fucking stinks! He brings him up onto his sleigh and asks him what he wants. Apparently, he wants the bell. Of literally all things a kid could ask for, he goes for the bell. Blue Robe gets the bell and shoves it in his pocket, which is a terrible spot to choose. Time finally unfreezes, and it's time for Santa to take off and start delivering all the gifts for Christmas. He flies around showing off before he opens a wormhole and disappears. The elves start to party, and the kids board the train with the conductor punching their tickets once more. He is finishing the words on each of the tickets, and the words are supposed to be a lesson for each of them. Four Eyes gets his ticket and goes,
This says lean.
it says learn, Dumbo. Get on the train. Satellite Ears gets a super special ticket that says something new every single time he spins it around. A little girl gets the word lead, implying that she could be a leader, or she's good at leading, or something along those lines. Last, the Blue Robe kid gets the word believe, saying that he needs to believe in more stuff and not be so hard-headed all the time. They all sit down, and the kid goes to check for the bell, and he realizes he put the bell in the rib pocket, or something, because it's gone, and there's no time for him to go back and find it. He's kind of bummed, but hey, learn your lesson. This kid lost just about anything he touched in this film. Once they make it back to wherever they came from, Billy shows that Santa has already stopped by and given him the gifts. The train is dropping everyone off one by one. He makes it to his house and says goodbye to the conductor, and the conductor says this.
One thing about trains, it doesn't matter where they're going. What matters is deciding to get on.
That is the most confusing set of advice for a 10-year-old. The kid gets into his house and heads to bed, and then is woken up in the morning by his sister yelling at him that Santa was here. He rushes out of bed and rips his robe again in a kind of a deja vu type of way. They get all the presents unwrapped, but then one final last present is made out to the boy. It's the bell, and a note from Santa himself.
Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Better fix that hole in your pocket, Mr. C.
Him and his sister can hear the bell, but his parents can't, showing that they don't believe in Santa. Him and his sister grow up, and she eventually stops hearing the bell, but he never does, because he never stops believing. This is definitely my favorite Christmas movie I've ever watched. I grew up on this movie, so I will not take any goddamn slander for this movie. It's the best. From the berating to the rating, it gets a Tom Hanks out of a Frosty the Snowman.
Particles in the universe that we can observe. Your mama took the ugly ones and put